Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you how to play the guitar solo from Van Halen's Finish What You Started. Now I'm really excited about this one because I've honestly never seen anyone play, teach, or tab this one correctly. And I know it frustrated me for many years. I remember giving up on it basically at one point because there are certain parts of this solo where it's kind of hard to hear what's going on. In particular, whenever the rhythm guitar and the vocals kick in, because they kind of come in and out, whenever they kick in, it makes it kind of hard to hear what's going on with the lead guitar. But the trick that I used, in addition to, of course, slowing down the original song and solo, to about 50%, which is what I usually do when I try to figure out leads, is I did my best to isolate the lead guitar, not only by shifting around the EQ to pull out the frequencies that the guitar was sitting in, but also Eddie Van Halen would very often put the lead guitar on one side of the stereo spectrum. So in the case of this song, he's got the lead guitar on the left, and he's got the rhythm guitar on the right. So I did all these things to help isolate the lead guitar, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. Anyway, the last thing I want to say here is, unlike most Van Halen songs, you want to keep your guitar in standard tuning for this one. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump on into it. All right, here's section 1 played at roughly normal speed, then slow speed, and then we'll break it up note by note in just a sec. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick the 2nd fret of the G string and then slide up to the 15th fret. Now once we're up there, the next note is going to be the 14th fret of the high E. But instead of picking it, you're going to pluck it with one of your fingers. I tend to use either my middle or ring finger, but use whatever's most comfortable for you. Okay? Now look at it from this angle where you can see my picking hand a little bit more clearly. Now we're going to be employing that technique throughout the rest of this solo. It's a very common technique in country music as part of what's called chicken picking. This is Eddie's version of chicken picking. And so what I'm going to do is anytime I use my pick, I'm going to say pick the note. And when you use a finger, I'm going to say pluck the note. Okay? Pick, pluck. Pick, pluck. All right? Next we're going to pick the 13th fret of the G string and then pluck the 12th fret of the high E. Then we're going to pick the 11th fret of the G, pluck the 11th fret of the E, pick the 9th fret of the G, pluck the 9th fret of the E. Then we're going to pick the open G string, hammer onto the 7th fret of the G string, and then pluck the 7th fret of the high E. Then we're going to pick the G string, hammer on to the 5th fret of the G, and then pluck the 5th fret of the high E. Then pick the G string, hammer onto the 4th fret, and then pluck the open E string. Oftentimes I'll see people replace that open E string note with the 3rd fret of the E string like this, which sounds cool, but that's not what Eddie does in the solo. And then next we're going to shift things down a string, so now you're going to be playing on the D and B strings. So you're going to play open D, hammer onto the 5th fret, and then pluck the 5th fret of the B string. Now this next part is probably the trickiest part of the solo, and what you're doing is you're picking the open D string, hammering onto the 7th fret, but as you're hammering onto the 7th fret, you're also plucking the 5th fret of the B string. And then you play the 5th fret of the B string again, quickly after that. That's one of those parts of the solo that I've really never seen anyone do. But if you listen closely and dissect every note and use the method that I talked about at the beginning, you'll hear those notes in there. Now, alternatively, if you just can't get that down rhythmically or comfortably, you could leave out, for example, the 5th fret of the B string the first time. So instead you just go, all right? Or alternatively, you could leave out the hammer onto the 7th fret of the D and just go like this. If you do either of those techniques, most people won't probably know the difference, okay? But again, I want to show it to you guys the correct way. And then finally, you're going to pick open D, hammer onto the 5th fret, and then pluck the 3rd fret of the B string. And then typically at the end, I add a little to help me keep in rhythm. It's hard to tell if Eddie's actually doing that, but for me it helps to do that at the end and go. So here's this section one more time slowly. All right, here's section 2 at normal and then slow speed. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick the 4th fret of the G and slide up to the 15th fret. And then we're going to pluck the 14th fret of the high E. All right? Very similar to the beginning of the last section, but we're just starting from the 4th fret instead of the 2nd fret. Honestly, I wouldn't get too hung up on where you start as long as you end up at the right spot, but I want to give it to you as accurately as possible. And then we're going to pick 13th fret G, pluck 12th fret E, pick 11th fret G, pluck 11th fret E, pick 9th fret G, pluck 9th fret E. Then we're going to pick open string G, hammer onto the 7th fret, and then pluck 5th fret E. Pick open string G, hammer onto 7th fret, pluck 7th fret E. Now take those 4 notes and repeat, okay? Then we're going to pick the open G string, and then we're going to pick the 11th fret G, slide up to the 12th, and then you're going to hold on to that 12th fret note on the G string, and then you're going to pluck 12th fret high E and slide up to the 14th fret. Okay? All right, here's the section one more time at slow speed. All right, let's keep moving. All right, now section 3 is probably going to be the simplest of all the sections because each section has something a little bit quirky going on, but this one rhythmically is a little bit more straightforward. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick the 11th fret of the G and slide up to the 15th, and then pluck the 14th fret of the high E. And then the next 6 notes are similar to what you've done in the other sections. Okay, so it's 13th fret G, pluck 12th fret E, 11th fret G, pluck 11th fret high E, pick 9th fret G, pluck 9th fret E, and then we get back into some more similar patterns that we've done before. So we're going to pick open string G, hammer onto the 7th fret, and then pluck 7th fret high E. Then we're going to pick open G, hammer onto the 5th fret, and then pluck 5th fret of high E. Okay, so here's those last 4 notes. Next we're going to shift down to the D and B strings. We're going to pick open D, hammer onto the 5th fret, and then pluck 3rd fret of the B string. We're going to shift things up a little bit. We're going to play open D, hammer onto the 7th fret, and then pluck the 5th fret of the B string. So those last 4 notes go like this. And you repeat that one more time. So here's this section one more time at slow speed. All right, let's keep moving. All right, section 4 is going to go like this at normal and then slow speed. So we're going to start at the 6th fret of the G, slide up to the 15th fret, followed by a pluck of the 14th fret of the high E. You'll notice the next 6 notes, you've already done these a couple times now, but I'll spell it out anyway. You're picking 13th fret G, plucking 12th fret E, pick 11th fret G, pluck 11th fret E, pick 9th fret G, pluck 9th fret E. Okay, here's what we have so far. Next, we're going to play the open G string, hammer onto the 7th fret, and then pluck the 5th fret of the high E. Then we're going to play open G, hammer onto the 7th fret again, and then pluck the 7th fret of the high E. And then we go back to the last pattern where we play the open G, hammer onto the 7th fret, pluck the 5th fret of the high E. All right, so those last 9 notes go like this. All right, then we shift things down to the D and B strings. We're going to play open D, hammer onto the 7th fret, and then pluck the 7th fret of the B string. We're going to move that down 2 frets, and we're going to play open G, hammer onto the 5th fret, pluck the 5th fret of the high E. And then open D, hammer onto the 7th fret. So the last 8 notes go like this. Now I know it seems like I'm leaving you hanging there after those last 2 notes, but I didn't want to add the final lick into this part. It would have made it a little bit too long. So here's this part one more time, slowly. All right, let's move on to the last section. All right, with the last section, we've got this little bluesy lick that goes like this. So with this section, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play the 10th fret of the B string and bend up a full step. Okay. Then we have this little part, the next 4 notes. That goes by really quickly. What we're doing is we're playing the 7th fret. First of all, we're barring our finger across the 7th fret of the E and B strings to start with. Okay. Then we're playing the 7th fret of the high E, followed by the 7th fret of the B string. Then we're hammering quickly onto the 10th fret of the B, pulling off to the 7th. That part is pretty well buried in the mix. It's kind of hard to hear, but if you use the technique that I talked about at the beginning by slowing it down and isolating the lead track, you'll hear it in there. Okay, it's just very faint. Okay, Eddie wasn't really picking that hard at that point. Okay, here's what we have so far. Then we're going to play the 9th fret of the G string and bend it up a half a step. Then the 7th fret of the B, followed by the 10th and 9th on the G. Then we're going to play the 10th fret of the B, pull off to the 7th fret of the B, 10th fret of the G, 7th fret of the B. Then we're going to do 10, 9, 7 on the G, and give a slight little quarter step bend at the 7th fret of the G. Then we're going to play the 9th fret of the D string twice, slide down. Okay? Here it is slowly. All right, that was my lesson on how to play the guitar solo from Van Halen's Finish What You Started. If you found it informative or enjoyed it, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And please hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I will attempt to answer them as time allows. Until next time, rock on.